Senator Elizabeth Warren, I truly appreciate you taking the time out of your day to provide some clarity to myself and my audience about all of the chaos that is going on. We have a lot to talk about, no time to waste at all. I want to talk about the War Powers resolution that's being put up in the Senate today. But first, I want to ask about the classified briefing that you and other senators received just yesterday.
Well, I went into that classified briefing really worried, and I came out more worried than I was when I went in. So, look, there are details I can't talk about, but let me put it this way. I really had a question about, so what is the rationale? What justification is the Trump administration giving for this attack on Iran? And the answers are just all over the map. And they contradict each other. They head in opposite directions. And that really worries me, because if you can't explain why you got in, then the other big question is a problem, and that is, how do you plan to get out? What are you going to do here? What constitutes winning here? And you can say, okay, check that box. And again, so questions about, is this a forever war or is this a 3-day war? And the answers, again, entirely contradictory, and that makes me very nervous.
It's very nerve-wracking, and the United States has tried this experiment time and time again. We have tried regime change in the Middle East, and every time the experiment fails. The easy part is not removing the leader or decapitating the regime. We saw with Gaddafi and Saddam Hussein that that's not the hard part, but building a sustainable institution to protect the people is the hard part, and the Trump admin seems to have no plan whatsoever. It seems like they'll contradict each other. One day it's an imminent threat, then they say it's regime change, then they say it's ICBMs, then they say it's nuclear weapons. They change their story every single day, which is why Congress needs to check the executive. Can you tell me why it's so important that this War Powers resolution is voted on, just to get Republicans at least on the map on their vote, and to also check a rogue executive?
Okay, so think of the War Powers Act as an emergency brake in a car. You shouldn't have to use it, and that's true right here. What should have happened is, if Donald Trump wanted to launch an attack on Iran, he should have come to Congress. And he should have asked Congress either for an authorization for the use of military force or a declaration of war. He could have done either of those things, briefed us in advance, asked us for a vote. Didn't do that. So what we built into the law is this War Powers resolution to say, hey, listen, if the president's out there waging war anyway, here's Congress's chance to jerk the emergency brake and put a stop to it. Now, whether or not that succeeds today depends on the Republicans. You'll have virtually all of the Democrats on it, but will you have enough Republicans to get it done?
And it seems like they're going to vote against it, very likely, which means that heading into the midterms, they are going to be on the record as supporting all of Trump's most rogue policies. He stepped over Congress to place tariffs on people, raise prices. He stepped all over Congress in order to start a war, and these Republicans are going to be held to that. I mean, regarding my generation, we're going to be plagued with debt for the rest of our lives, the national debt, due to not only the wars that have been started, but the reckless spending from the Republicans, the tax cuts for the rich while cutting healthcare for the poor at the same time. Just awful policy. Can you explain how this plays into that, how this will increase the debt? I believe we've spent billions of dollars already, and they're asking for tens of billions of dollars more, reportedly. Can you explain the long-term effects of this? And
absolutely. So there are some estimates now that in this attack on Iran, that the United States is burning through $1 billion a day. And that's money. That's money in a country that says, nope, I'm sorry, there's not enough money to cover healthcare, not enough money so that people can afford to go to college, or that we can cancel some of the student loan debt, not enough money so that we can have universal childcare, not enough money so that we can build more housing. But there is enough money to burn through as much as $1 billion a day to attack Iran for reasons that nobody can even describe. And, you know, I hate to say this, but Adam, you put it exactly right. It's not just the money and where it gets spent today. All of this is being loaded on the debt. And that is debt that will be on the shoulders of your generation. And that debt compounds over time. So all the things we don't have right now, if the Republicans keep this up, it not only means you don't have a chance to have them in the future, it means that things we are doing kind of okay on, like, we keep the roads paved, we keep the water system running, even that starts to deteriorate because the Republicans are just on a wild spending spree here. Spend for the military, spend for the billionaires with tax cuts, and tell everybody else just to go eat dirt.
And it's worth pointing out, Donald Trump is repeating the Republican playbook. He's like basically Bush with more narcissism at this point, because again, they cut taxes, they cut healthcare for the poor, and then they go to war in the Middle East, except this time there's no coherent plan. And I kind of say that this administration has gone from Bush to America first. They went isolationist and all the way back to Cheney, because remember, they were making this argument a few months ago that we should only support hemispheric intervention in the Western Hemisphere. Then they basically dropped that argument. They didn't believe that at all. They've dropped that and they said, well, we can just basically revert back to the neocons and spend money on endless wars. They have no guiding principles. They're just following Trump and they're ruining our country in the process.
That's right. What happened to America first?
Yeah.
And instead they say, oh, but the Israelis, we're going to attack anyway. So we just follow in behind them. And again, whether you think it's right or wrong, what the Israelis are doing here, the idea that the United States would say the decision about going to war should be outsourced to the Israelis, as Secretary Rubio suggests, that's a real problem. Because again, Adam, your generation are the ones who are going to pay for this. Right now, we are in a moment where the Republicans are caught, the Republicans in the Senate. They want to go along with everything Donald Trump says. They bow down to Donald Trump. It is the only action they know. And yet, the more we get them into these votes and get them on the record, the more they're beginning to face the fact that come November, they are going to have to face the voters across this country. And our job is just to make sure that they have no opportunity to wiggle off the hook. Either they help us rein in Donald Trump now, or they pay the price for it with the American public this November.
And we're seeing the administration becoming increasingly desperate, increasingly authoritarian ahead of a looming midterms that is going to, quite frankly, smack them around a little bit. It feels like the desperation is coming in the form of the redistricting effort that was swatted down by Governor Newsom, thankfully. It's coming in the form of the Save America Act, multiple ways to suppress voting. I guess I want to ask you one final question that I've been asking a lot of Democratic politicians lately. This is my favorite question to ask. I feel like for the past decade, we've been unified by our opposition to Donald Trump. And we're lately seeing candidates who are coming out with a more affirmative message. Like James Tallarico had an amazingly affirmative message and he won last night. It's not just opposition to Trump. It's a new wave of anti-corruption and redistributing wealth and all of this. How do you think the Democratic Party should be defined? How should we define ourselves affirmatively? What should we stand for?
Oh, look, we need an economic issue that says we are no longer going to be a nation that asks the question, how can we make life better for billionaires? But instead a nation that says we are going to invest in working people and creating opportunities, and that we have the courage to take on the billionaires and both take them on and tax them and use that money to invest, but also take them on to say, we are not going to let you continue to run corporations that just rip everybody off, that we really are willing to build a muscular democracy, a democracy that works for families. And when you're pointing out that you watched with James Tallarico last night, but look around, there are more and more young Democrats stepping into that. Look at Zoran Mamdani, right, so far this year. And heck, look at Abigail Spanberger, who stepped up. Look at Mikey Sherrill, who stepped up. Mikey Sherrill ran on two things. She said, I'm going to do universal child care, and I am going to put a freeze on your utility costs. Those are affirmative, aggressive ways of saying, I see you, I hear you, and I am damn well going to make this government work. Not for those rich guys. I am going to make it work for you. That's a Democratic Party I can get behind.
Thank you for laying out your affirmative message, Senator. It always means the world, and we'll chat again soon. Thank you for everything you do.
You take care, Adam.